right. Hey
Okay.
guys, welcome to Admissions Roadmap. Our mission here is to help Indians get into top business schools, and to help with that is Nishant. Nishant joins us as a graduate of UNC's Kenan-Flagler Business School. He's now working as a product marketing. What is at what does the company do? I'll let you take over. A product marketing specialist at Progress. What does Progress do? Let's start with that, and let's go back to the initial part of the journey. Welcome, Nishant.
Sure. Hey, Ashwin. Thanks for having me on this call and really excited. Hopefully, we together are able to help some more MBAs in the future.
That's right.
So, with respect to Progress, we are a software company. We are a B2B uh, enterprise solutions. Like we offer platforms to build applications, and it's a lot. Like Progress itself, you get all the stack, like from starting from the back end to the middleware to the front end. You have everything together. But within Progress, I work for Data Direct, and we are the leaders in standard-based connectors. So think of ODBC, JDBC drivers. So people who are applying from India most likely are IT, so they will get the reference.
Yeah,
So
that's
we
right.
make a business out of this. You
Yeah,
wouldn't believe how many people got surprised that we sell ODBC, JDBC drivers.
see, I don't even know what ODBC, JDBC is, and real as an accountant by education and then subsequent
Okay.
consultant by training, I have no clue. But the reason I wanted to start with that is to say, okay, for a person who's done engineering, which is a lot of India, applying to business
hmm
school, which is a lot of Indians again.
hmm
There is a space where you can find within the technical field, you can still be a product manager or product marketing, and that's the career path
Absolutely.
you've chosen. And so we'll talk
hmm
about how you got to that career path. But let's start at the very beginning. Um,
hmm
you studied engineering at IIT, IIT
hmm
Guwahati. Um,
Right.
you participated in a lot of activities. Let's talk about that point. What made you go from there to spend 3 years as a software engineer? And then what was your impetus to actually want to apply for business school?
Great question to begin with. So IIT, it was all about exploring. So the good part of Guwahati was that there were really smart people around you, and you would get into that identity crisis very soon.
Yeah,
Everyone is good at everything, so you would essentially start looking at other people and starting want to do different things. And as
yeah,
part of that, I started sports. Like sports is some my biggest win in general. I love playing sports. It gives me a lot of satisfaction in general. So that's where I started. But then I would meet more people, and I would hear about the annual conferences that would happen within Guwahati, and then get involved in those things. And my whole point was about meeting people. For some reason, I like meeting people and getting stuff done. And I guess this is natural for most of us. Like being in India, and if you're the second or the first son, people, your mom and dad generally force you to do things. You're
yeah.
like, dude, get your shit together. You have to work it for yourself. So that's how I got in there, and then I enjoyed the extracurricular. It wasn't geared towards anything to begin with, but eventually, by the third year, I wasn't enjoying electronics as much, and I figured I'll pursue my CAT, which every engineering
Indian
student in
does.
India
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
And I mean, why I did not make it through is like going to make a great story some other time. But again, end of
Okay,
the day, I gave it my all. I was hoping to really get into it, but at the very end, I did not make it through.
okay.
And for that, I was doing the extracurriculars because my CGP was around 8 out of 10, and it's not considered too high. It's like good enough, but
Even in
it
the
wouldn't.
IITs. Jesus.
Yeah, so you wouldn't believe the number of 9 pointers who were giving the CAT
Their
exam.
cat
So I
as
was
well.
like, okay,
Wow.
yeah. So I was trying to just increase my persona and get some experience because again, one thing that people always miss is MBA is not just about learning through courses, but it's through learning by sharing your experiences. And if you
Hmm.
have not had any sort of experience, an MBA is not going to make you a leader or a manager
So as a
because you don't
published
have anything to compare with.
Sorry, yeah, as I published a lot of interviews over
hmm
the last 2 or 3 months, people have come in asking me what was surprising. I assume people who are applying on the cusp of applying to business school will contact me and say, hey, can I also emulate that path? What was surprising
hmm
to me is people who are juniors in undergrad or seniors in undergrad and are just about to graduate from either IITs or Sri Ram College contact me and say, hey, I want to do an MBA 3 years from now. Can you help me with profile building? And I was like, man,
Wow.
I never thought about this. I was not that
I should have done
cognizant about this.
that.
Exactly. But you did. So even in relative matter of speaking, I'm looking at your LinkedIn right now. You were part of the media team, the marketing team, the soccer club, badminton club, zero illiteracy zone. I assume you did something to improve illiteracy across
Right, right, right,
across
right.
the underprivileged, mess in charge, and a
Mm-hmm.
part of a group called Relatively Speaking, which were discussing the theory of relativity. See, even all of this counts for
Right.
something. It counts as
Mm.
experiences, as you mentioned, that one can showcase when you go into the MBA application or a job interview, irrespective, right? It's something one can say, hey, I did beyond what I was just studying. Did we get a distraction?
I guess I don't know. I thought there was some sort of internet problem.
Oh, that's fine. I think we're still well connected for now.
Okay, good.
Okay, so you participated in a lot of activities that showed uh, you were multi-dimensional. You
Hmm.
spent 3 years as a software engineer, which a lot of Indians do after their education. Talk about the point at which you said, okay, now I want to go get an MBA. What was that point?
Um, that's a great question. So for me, MBA was a very obvious choice, even when I was doing my bachelor's.
Okay.
So the path towards GMAT is different because by the second or third year, like you observed, I was doing multiple things and I wasn't enjoying technology as much because it
Mm,
was hardware. And like I said, getting really being successful in that field was a little tricky.
mm,
And I figured that, okay, I'm not enjoying it, so I shouldn't be doing it. So MBA sounds interesting, like based on all the clubs I was forming, based on all the
mm,
people I was talking to, and all the activities I was doing. It felt like, okay, this is more of a strength for me. Like I
mm,
am good at math, physics, and everything, but I don't enjoy it, so I shouldn't be doing
mm,
it. And
mm,
that's where I figured CAT is my next step.
mm,
And to be frank, I was ready for an MBA at that point, but to only be a manager. Like I
mm,
could have learned some finance, I could have learned some marketing, I would have only become a manager at that point. That was
mm,
what I was gearing up for. I was
mm,
only trying to shift my profession.
mm,
And I failed at it. Like I only got some. Okay, let's not get into the percentiles.
mm.
But it was good enough. But it did not take me into the right schools at that point. So I
Okay.
figured I'll give it another shot a little later because I had to recoup myself.
Mm,
And I felt like, okay, I did a really long marathon. I need some break and I do it again. But at some point, I felt like I was talking to people from ISP because I worked in software engineering in Hyderabad.
mm,
I had a few people at the director level. I was talking to them and they would constantly convince me to come to ISP. I'm
mm,
like, okay, what is this ISP? I was
mm,
like, I did not even know about it. I know that they get paid well, but I was
mm.
totally looking for some sort of,
Something beyond just education, something
yeah,
experiential that was diverse.
yeah, I mean, it may sound a little awkward for some people, but again, I was like, okay, I have done IIT, it should be something bigger. And
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking ISB was big enough at that point.
Okay.
And then as I started talking to people, I figured that IIMs especially, they make you really good managers, but
Yeah.
it's hard to become a leader over there. They're
Yeah.
not even making you think in that direction. It's about,
Understood.
okay, um, just get good with finance and marketing and then apply for your school. Like they even have this recruiting. I didn't
Yeah.
even know that they wouldn't be recruiting in the US. So
Yeah.
my whole world was revolving around India. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, people would come and then they would hire you just like they did in IIT. So that was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
When I came to the US, and it wasn't true. But again, I
Yeah.
was. We'll talk more about it. But at the end of
Yes.
the day, I knew I always wanted to do MBA, and as I started researching more about CAT and ISB, I figured that okay, I do not want just bookish knowledge. I want to go beyond that. I want to have a cultural experience. I want to be talking to more people and understanding why some countries are better at leading and inventing versus some countries are good at execution. Like our country is perfect. Like we do a brilliant job of getting things done in the minimum amount of resources. But if we were to create new things, I wouldn't
It's a
bet on
struggle.
Indian. Yeah,
Understood.
I mean, like as of today, I wouldn't do it. So that's what I was looking for when I was looking at the MBA schools in the US. And for
Understood.
that, yeah, go ahead. Did you
Yeah,
have?
we're looking for something a little different from just bookish knowledge. A lot of Indians I
Mhm.
know at this point, especially when they're exploring external opportunities outside of India, are doing so for one of two reasons. They want a little more diverse educational experience, and they want to
Mhm.
work in a country outside of India just to explore what that's like.
Oh,
It,
that's actually one of the reasons too. Like, I mean, my 3 years of software engineering, like the first 6 months were terrific because I was constantly learning new technologies. I was constantly working on new projects. It was amazing. And then I was good at something. And so they decided to make me do the same thing again and again for the next 1 year. I complained. They gave me something new. And I was doing the same thing again and again for another 2 years. And then I was like, okay, this is it. I cannot do this anymore. And at some point, like even before those 3 years, like probably at 1.5 mark, I was like, okay, I cannot do this. Originally, I was aiming for waiting till like 4 or 5 years and then going into an MBA, like either in India or the US. It didn't matter at that point. But as I started researching about what we get out of MBAs in India versus MBA in the US, I figured that, okay, I don't want to be running. I want to learn at a easier pace because again, when we talk about leadership, it's going to be a cultural shift for Indians.
mm,
We're not naturally thinking about leading. We're always thinking about, okay, what has been done?
mm,
Let's go and perfect it.
mm,
Versus, okay, there's a white space, let me go grab it. We don't think
mm,
in that direction. So I
mm,
thought it needed a couple of years to brainwash myself. I
mm,
needed that retrospective time, and that's the reason I figured, okay, MBA 2 years is absolutely important because
mm,
ISB was very similar. Like, I mean, if people are wondering if they should be doing ISB versus the US MBAs, one thing
mm,
that is different is it's 1 year versus 2 years,
mm,
while on the investment side, it is going to be less.
mm,
On the learning side, it's going to give you less amount of time to learn new things. So for
mm,
me, the biggest motivator was changing as a person, and 1 year wasn't going to be enough because
mm,
again, the moment you go in, you're learning some new subjects, and then you're recruiting, and then you're done. That's not
mm.
what I was looking for.
Understood. Fair point. Let's, if you can remember back to the application process,
Hmm.
um, I want us to think about how you selected the initial bunch of schools you wanted to apply to and give us your reflections on what went right and what went wrong in that process, just in the selection of schools.
Sure. So I gave 2 attempts at GMAT. Okay, the
Hmm.
first one was I don't know. I was just thinking, okay, I have a degree from the most premier school in India. I
Mm,
have an 8 out of 10, which is like decent enough. I have three
mm,
years or 2 years of experience. So when I had this 2 years of experience and I had this decent persona for myself, I was thinking, okay, this is amazing. So I
yeah,
was only looking at Harvard and Stanford of the world. You won't believe. Like I would
yeah.
apply with a 680 score. My number
As
one
as
score
are
was
most
680.
Indians, by the way. So you're not. Yes.
So you would think you're special,
Yeah.
but you're only as special as the person next to you. Like there's so many people, there's so many amazing people who have done so many things. I mean, they've
Yeah.
been lucky enough, they have been bold enough to try new things.
Yeah.
They've been in startups, they have been like coming from power side. Like IT is the most, I mean, common people you would meet in
Ubiquitous
any
in India.
MBA.
Yeah.
So my first one was bad. Like I did not do enough research. It was more of a hatred towards my job. I mean,
Yeah.
that is
It
the
was
biggest
moving away
motivation you
from
can ever
something.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I don't want to do this. I have to get a new MBA. So let me look at the top 10. Like if in India I've been doing in the top 10, I should be doing the same thing in the US.
Mm,
And I was looking at some of the top schools, and obviously, no surprise, I did not get a call from any of them with that
mm,
very pathetic score. Like it was 680. And then
mm,
I figured, okay, I spoke to some of people. Like now, like the first time I just did it on my own. I was like, okay,
mm,
let me write whatever I like.
mm,
And then I figured, okay, this is not going to work. I was talking to a few more people. I had a few friends in the US. Like we were talking before the call. Like my brother is in the US, so he had some
mm,
contacts who went to the good school, like the Ross, the Stanfords, the UNCs, all the good schools. And then I had a chance to talk with him.
mm,
And that's when I figured they're not necessarily looking for excellence. They're
mm,
looking for diversity, and
mm,
they both are extremely different things.
mm,
You could be an excellent leader without having the basic math, physics, and chemistry. You wouldn't know when you're applying things,
mm,
but when you talk to people, and especially when you get into the schools, that's when you realize the importance of diversity.
Mm.
People just blow your minds off. Like there could be a case study with all the numbers in the world, and there
Mm.
will still be people who wouldn't look at the numbers and come up with a
And come up with a
solution which will
completely
be
diverse point of view.
very, yeah, very similar solution, but much more thought provoking.
Yeah.
So they go beyond the numbers, which was very exciting. So again, like talking to these people told me about, okay, what I was doing wrong, in the sense that, okay, you cannot just say I'm good at math, I'm good
Yeah.
at finance, I'm good at like, this. Talk about what are your aspirations. So I would give them a rough curve. Like again, IIT is probably the higher point that people generally look at when they go to LinkedIn profiles of most people, but everyone has a story.
Yeah.
Bringing that story inside the application is extremely critical. Like for
Yeah.
me, I think that is the one thing that worked in my favor, because I had compared to other people who would be applying for MBAs in the schools in the US. I mean, I only had 2.5 or 3 years of experience when I was applying. So average is much higher, and it is too early. Like if someone today is going to ask me, okay, should I do my MBA 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years? 4 years is like an easy choice. It
Understood.
is too early for going to an MBA because, like I said a little while back, it's all about sharing the experience.
Yeah.
And if you don't have anything to reflect on, if you haven't been through enough situations,
You don't
it's
have an
not good
experience
enough.
to share.
Yeah.
Understood.
But
Well,
if you're in a
let's.
startup, maybe it's a different one.
Yeah, I know. These days, for people that are going to listen, like schools like Harvard and all of that are tending to lean towards more people with fewer years of experience. Even those with
Hmm.
they've increased the proportion of people they're accepting directly from undergrad as well,
Okay.
which is a really
Okay.
strange phenomenon that I'm starting to see. But I agree with you on this aspect. Let's let's talk about you mentioned just very briefly that there are certain things you did well in expressing your story while you were
Hmm.
applying. Let's talk about that in the application process itself. What was the
Fair enough.
story that you expressed to UNC that convinced them that, okay, you're the person that can take in, both
Okay.
from a
So
career goals
putting
aspect as
myself
well as
back
your
in. Mhm.
broad experience?
Sure. So, well,
Yeah.
putting myself back like 6 years or 5 years, I guess, like going back 5 years in time, the thing that I was thinking about is, okay, after talking to all these different people, okay, am I in the center or not?
Yes, you're fine. You're fine. You're good.
Okay, cool. So, after talking to those people, I figured that MBA schools are also trying to build their own brand. They want people that will succeed in the future.
Yeah.
So it can be done through different parameters. So one parameter is the GMAT score, which every Indian will figure out at some point.
Yeah.
And another parameter is your current career.
Yeah.
So IT is a good thing,
Yeah.
but if you're applying to the eastern side schools, then maybe not the best choice, because if you're interested in if your story is going to be about I want to go into technology,
Yeah.
then everyone is going to say, okay, why are you coming on this east coast? Go to the west coast.
West
That's
Coast.
an
Yeah.
obvious choice.
Yeah.
Or if you want to talk about your overall persona in general, then you have to talk about the curricular activities and stuff like that, and it's not going to add value, because end of the day you may think that all these things are good enough, but that's the baseline. They're
Yeah.
not looking for people who have like a good resume. They're looking for someone who have a good strong personality,
Yeah.
and that is where the applications really come handy. So
Yeah.
for me, it was important to understand what is the person I want to give for myself in front of these people. And I was
Okay.
thinking someone who can get out of the hard situations, make things happen, be successful, and give everything until I succeed. So that is the kind of person I was looking for. Because end of the day, it's 3 years, like very early. There are not too many experiences that I could build on. Like you would be surprised how many people have all these sports or extracurriculars, and everything is common. When I came to UNC, there were
You
50
thought you were
Indians.
unique, but everybody had some of those.
Yeah, there were
Yeah.
35 people with an IT background. I was like surprised, like why did I even come here? That
Yeah.
was my initial thought when I got here. But
Yeah.
again, over the course of 2 years, it changed. But that is how unique you are.
Yeah.
You're not unique in the sense. That's what I'm trying
Yeah.
to tell.
Yeah.
So that's where I went back to my original story, where I was initially moving from Vizag to Hyderabad.
Yeah.
And it was a very big shift for me because
Yeah.
in Vizag, we wouldn't even communicate in English. It was like we speak in Telugu. Yeah,
Right.
like some of the native speakers will understand this. So it was much more mellowed. I wouldn't really concentrate on academics. Everything was easy. But
Right.
the moment I got out of Vizag into Hyderabad, it was like breaking my glass door. I figured that the world was way ahead of me.
This
It
was
was like,
pre-high school, right?
yeah, it was
So
like
you spoke
my,
about the story even pre-high school of the
yeah,
challenges that
yeah,
you had to do in terms of even within the same state cultural reintegration or understanding
right.
how to become better. Okay, go on. This is
Yeah.
fascinating.
Because for me, it's like building a story. Like, end of the day, it's like one of those Hollywood movies where the hero is going through a lot of pain and finally comes through it. Like, everyone is a hero of their story. Like, if someone is trying to apply to a UNC or a Harvard or a Stanford or a Ross, they are extremely successful and confident, and bringing the essence of their life is going to make it more relatable because all these consultancy firms that help you like write your story, I don't believe in that. You can help guide people in the right direction, but you cannot write their story. I never went to this firm that would help me write the story. They can help me with my grammar, but they shouldn't be helping me with my story because then it's a textbook print that you're trying to copy, and plagiarism, you know how well it is taken in the US.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've been working with students, select students over the last 4 or 5 years who come in through referrals, and this year the thing that I make them focus on is showcasing their story. They may have all of the same parameters that every other Indian has, but showcasing something
Hmm.
unique, just like you spoke about, where at the early years you move from a place where you didn't speak any English to go into a place where suddenly you have to reintegrate yourself, is an
Right,
incredible story, almost like a movie story that you can speak of, that can
right.
help people relate to you, that can help people 8,000 miles away in the US relate to that experience.
Exactly. That is exactly what I was trying to like portray. Like, I mean, Vizag is not a village, but if the US has to understand, they have to understand, okay, this was a very small town in India and I was moving to a very big city. And once I moved, it shattered all my confidence. And it was like, I wasn't even in the like top 50. Like in India, if you're not in the top three, you're essentially going to get screwed in the long run because there's too many
Yeah,
people. So that's
yeah.
what was my metric. I couldn't speak, I couldn't perform well in academics, and everything was broken for me because I lost my friends, I lost everything that was familiar to me. So that is the kind of person I created. Like, that was the plot of the story, and then I told them how did I get through it. So for me, it was all about the incremental wins. So I wasn't looking at, okay, I want to become the number one in the class like in 1 month. I was just saying, okay, I score like a 65% out of 100 when the class average is 90. Okay, let me push it by 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. And by 10th class, I was in the top 10 in the school. It was a very big school, and it is not a big deal for most of the Indians. Like, they must be thinking, okay, what the heck is he talking about? Number 10 in a school, like, I did it like even without trying. So that's not the point. The
Yeah,
point was the grit. The
yeah.
point was the determination, and the point was that this started making me believe that if you try hard enough, you can make things happen. So
Understood.
that is the premise for how I got into IIT.
That's
So
that's inc-
that made me, so that's where I thought, okay, as long as you're willing to put more number of hours, more amount of sincerity than the person next to you, you get what you want. So
that-
that's what brought me into IIT, and yeah, that's
that's
the
an
kind of story I told
incredible
them.
story, by the way. That's an incredible
I don't
story,
know,
and
by the way.
often a story that goes like most Indians don't write it. They try and write factually about what they accomplished at work and not relate to something such so personal that can showcase their character and their personality to people there. I
Mhm.
couldn't agree with you more on this. But I want to ask you one thing. What did
Mhm.
you specifically write about your goals when you were writing those essays?
Sure. So I gave them the context of what made me start liking marketing and MBA in general. So,
Mm,
uh, as you spoke about initially, I was involved in a few clubs. I was
mm,
working with the marketing club of Guwahati, and there
Yeah.
was the media club. I would be talking to multiple people. I would be controlling the messaging a little bit because end of the day, the journalist decide what he wants to write, and I didn't even know SMEs, so I cannot
Yeah.
control that.
Yeah.
So it was still my responsibility to make sure that some of the events were getting highlighted, some of the problems were getting highlighted, or some of the initiatives like the illiteracy zone.
Illiteracy. Mm.
Yeah, all these things were getting highlighted. So in that process, I just enjoyed the fact that if there is a cause, you don't always have to just appeal from a humanitarian perspective. You can
Mm.
always give it a much more fascinating story, saying, okay, this is the impact we have, and give some numbers, and they would like it and they would publish it, versus going and saying, Bhaiya, you did this last year, let's do this. Like, it's not going to work. You have to
Mm.
have some sort of a story behind every product that you're selling. So
Mm.
I believe like everything is about marketing in this world. So I didn't know that it was marketing back then, but as I
Mm.
started speaking with some people, I figured that that was what is marketing, and then
Mm.
I weave all of this into a story. I said, okay, I was naturally inclined towards marketing.
Mm.
I didn't even know that was marketing because end of the
Mm.
day, for me at that point, marketing was ads,
Mm.
and
Mm. Mm.
marketing is beyond ads. I never
Mm.
figured that. But
Mm.
as I spoke to people, as I understood what goes into marketing, what goes into management, I I started liking some parts of management more than others, and that's what I highlighted. So in the end, I said, okay, during my BTech, this is what I liked. During my job, I was working a lot with the clients, and I enjoyed bridging the gap between technology and business. So all
Mm.
these things added up in general, and my 3-year goal was like to be in a position where I'm able to really launch a product. Like, give me a product, give me a customer, I should be able to launch it.
Mm.
And versus a 5-year goal would be able to set the direction. Like, instead of
Mm.
saying, okay, what is the product, what is the customer, I should be able to go ahead and say, okay, this is the
Who are the
customer, so this
products?
is the white
What
space,
product will
this
they
is
like?
what we should
Mm.
be building. So
Mm.
that is the kind of story I built around my, again, like, end of the day, it wouldn't be as structured as some other applications. Mine was more about empathy, mine was more about emotions, and I took a different route, and it worked in my favor. I must say, because the first year it was more facts. I was like, okay,
Mm.
I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I want to do this, and I'm like the top 0.01% in India, so I
Mm.
definitely deserve to be here. Like, that is not a story.
Mm.
That is a
Mm.
robot talking about why it deserves to do some sort of algorithm. Though,
Mm.
so it didn't work for me. The second one was much better.
Understood. Then you got into UNC. Let's speak very briefly about your memory of year one and year two,
Oh
particularly
yeah.
in relation to recruiting aspects at UNC. Not just recruiting, but student life in general. What was the
Okay.
surprising thing when you entered into UNC that you felt, damn, I'm not very well prepared for this?
You'll never be prepared for the recruiting cycle.
Yes.
Never. Especially because some of the MBA students that you speak with, they don't tell you everything for real. Like, I mean, they paint a really cool picture for you. Like, when I was
Yeah.
coming in, like, I spoke to 10 to 15 people, and out of that, like, 5 people from UNC. So I was talking to them, and everyone says, oh, UNC is amazing. Job prospects is superb. Like, you get what you like, you can get into marketing, you get into consult, everything is like pleasant.
Yeah.
And day one I enter, I was talking to people. I was like, okay, they were like, okay, what do you do? I said, okay, 3 years of IT engineering, and blah. Like, यहाँ कैसे आ गए? Why did you come? I'm like, what the heck? I spoke to all of you
Sheesh.
when I was coming here.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm just trying to be frank for everyone else
No,
who's
no,
doing it
that's
right now,
true.
because
It's a true picture, by the way.
I'm like, why did you not tell me when I was making this decision? I was clearly asking if I should wait for a scholarship, because I know, like, yeah, after 1 year, I can get a scholarship, I can get into a better school. Should I wait for it, or should I come to UNC? And everyone was like, UNC is amazing. Like, you cannot lose 1 year in IT. You should be doing an MBA. That was the picture I got before coming to MBA. But the moment I came in, it was like, okay, dude, तेरा तो वाट लगेगा. This is exactly what I had. That the first interaction, like, what the heck, what are you talking about? I thought it's going to be
Oh,
easy peasy, and I'll learn things. I was more there for learning than recruiting. But end of the day, the first 1 month, like first 1 week itself, they start making you work on
look on
LinkedIn
your resume.
profiles,
Mm.
your 1 minute pictures, fucking 5 minute pictures, and then resumes. Everything is like too quick. You
What's your
don't
unique
get,
proposition? Work on your
yeah,
cover letter, get all that ready.
right. And at the end of the day, like it was defeating my purpose. Like for me, it was all about growing as a leader. And given the huge amount of investment that I put in, like 100K is no easy thing for most Indians.
Yeah.
So I figured that, okay, I have to get recruited, because if they're saying it is hard for internationals,
Mm,
it is hard for international male, it is hard
mm,
for international male IT, and it is
mm.
hard for international male IT with low experience, I'm like, wow, I'm checking all the
You're ticking all
boxes.
boxes.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I should be more serious than what I thought I should be. So for me, most part of the 2 years went in recruiting, but the good thing about being clear about what you want to do with an MBA is going to, like, it is going to help you really focus on what you want to do.
Focus on
So for
what you need
me,
to
for
recruit. Mm,
example, I wanted to first believe that I'm at least as good as the people I'm studying with
mm,
across all the streams. So the first
mm,
two mods, I was very sincere with academics. I was like,
mm,
okay, let me see what is the best I can do. And I
mm,
was like happy with getting a high grade in all of them. I'm like, okay, so
mm,
now I know that if I were to take it seriously, I can do it. So
mm,
that gave me the confidence that I'm good enough to with everyone in terms of communication, in terms of math, of course, in terms
mm,
of finance, in terms of yeah, I mean, organizational behavior. All these things were good for me.
mm.
So that was a good point. And then I stopped. I mean, again, this is not suggesting other people that, okay, they
To
shouldn't
do
focus on
so, yeah.
academics. But for me, I felt like, okay, I'm done with bookish knowledge. Now that I
Yeah.
know that, so I was leaning on to practical training.
Mm.
And so I would do a lot of projects. I don't know if I have included it on my
You
LinkedIn.
have included, and I want to speak about a few of them. What I see
Yeah,
on LinkedIn is first you took on a club leadership position. You were VP of Digital Marketing for MBA Ambassadors. I want to learn a little bit about what that was. And then you
hmm,
worked on a few projects, one for SMB at Dell. You won the Microsoft Innovation Challenge.
right.
You worked with Citrix for their product marketing team on what seems like maybe a part-time role, but then also your internships. I saw that you had multiple internships, not
Right.
just one. Speak about
Yep.
the broad experience that you managed to get out of UNC while you were balancing
Absolutely.
recruiting versus the experiential learning that you were seeking.
For sure. So academics is going to be easy for most Indians. Like it's you've been through one of the, like it's the most hardest thing
No,
in
it wasn't
India.
for
Like,
me, by the way.
oh, is
I'm
it?
just saying.
Okay. I don't know. Like I was like, okay, once I was done with mod 2, I did not have high aspiration. I was like, okay, I just need to get through this. I don't want like a high grade and everything. I don't want a gold medal. It doesn't mean anything. I'm here for learning. I'm here to become a leader, and that is what I'll focus on. So the first things first. So the digital marketing for MBA ambassadors, that was more about giving back to the community. So like I said, I did not have a great experience with the MBA ambassadors. Like at the end of the day, they're like extremely nice people. They were probably speaking from their experience. So the ones I interacted during the MBA ambassadors was like the 5 people I was speaking with. They had good careers. They had good internship. They were able to convert everything very easily. So they were giving me that very pleasant picture.
Yeah,
Nothing against them, but for me it was like it's not the whole picture. So
yeah, that's
that's
true.
why I thought, okay, it's I have some sort of responsibility towards all the new MBAs who are trying to come to the US. So I wanted to give them a fairer picture. So I became part of the MBA ambassadors program and connected people to the right people. So end of the day, it's again giving back to the community at places where you thought things could have been done better. So
Mm,
again, you don't have, like, none of these really matter. End of the day, if you're being sincere towards whatever you like, whatever you're
mm,
passionate about. So
mm,
this would not have added as much value as the rest of the things that I did. So
mm,
let me talk about the first 3 months. So
mm,
in an MBA, the first couple of weeks goes in the resumes, and immediately the recruiting cycle begins. People
mm,
are they post jobs in your portal, and more often than not, people with my kind of background, like who have IT 3 years of experience and everything, it's not going to work. I did not get a single interview call out of the first half of recruiting, and I was like devastated because end of the day, I did not even know what I should be doing.
mm,
So I spoke to recruiters and I was seeing who was getting recruited. And the biggest difference was that the people who are getting in, they have a much diverse profile or much deeper profile. So they've
Mm,
been doing the same thing for long enough. So
mm,
again, that's an easy choice. Someone with the 5 years versus 3 years, the one with 5 years makes sense because everything
mm,
else is same. Indian
mm,
IT male is going to be very, very similar, believe it or not.
mm,
So
mm,
that's the reason I thought, okay, now let me focus on one thing. Like after the first 2 months, I figured that marketing is again the one thing that I want to do. So although
mm.
before MBA, I knew marketing is what I wanted to do. I want to be sure that that is what I'm good
That
at
was
and that
what
is
it
what I
was.
want to be doing. So once I
Mm,
was sure that marketing is what I wanted to do, I focused on building my profile.
mm,
So I wanted to do a lot of extracurriculars in terms of internship. It
mm,
didn't have to be paid. It didn't have to be something that the college recommends. So for me, it's 3 years. I have to get to that 4 or 5 years of point. And the best way to go about it is do one thing and be very good at it. Take that
mm,
Joker philosophy and be really good at what you're doing. So I just did product marketing, product marketing, product marketing, product marketing. That is the
mm.
only thing you'll see in my entire profile.
How
And
did you
again,
find those roles at UNC, even though they were non-paying? Because that's
uh,
critical. A lot of people may be seeking these kind of opportunities when they go into school as well.
I mean, that's again going back to your personality. So, like I said, I'm very persistent. I don't know, you could either be complaining, you could be sad, you could be doing anything. I had a ton of people who would be pinging on me on my WhatsApp, yaar, Kadiala, internship nahi lag raha. I would like just get pissed off at them. I'm like, okay, dude, I'm also not getting it. I don't want to be depressed. I just want to be working. So I
It's
would
quite
just
the
be
same at
focusing on,
most places, by the way.
yeah. Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting challenge for people who get in to
You
keep
know,
up with everyone else's depression.
just to speak about this, whether I've heard the same from people at Harvard as I have
Uh-huh.
from people at a rank 40 school, right? It's just that
Hmm.
people at Harvard or anybody else or Ross or any of these top 15, top 20 schools that go in come in with the expectation that it should be a little easier because of the picture that's painted. And the effort
Yeah,
of this series is to showcase a true picture
right.
that you can get what you want, but you'll have to hustle like crazy. You'll have to find out ways that you never knew you could be persistent. But
Hmm.
it's not that easy. Um,
Right.
and within that spectrum, when you're having that experience, there are two sets of people that will complain about nothing happening, and those that
Yeah.
will say, okay, screw it, nothing's happening, so let's try the best anyway.
Yeah.
You will see those distinct personalities when the pressure cooker situation comes along. I've been culpable in some cases of being the complaining bit, and then I've realized, okay, maybe I shouldn't, and move forward towards the other path as well.
Yeah. End of the day, I mean, this the stress moments they teach you a lot. Like it tells you what you are as a person, what you could have been, what others are doing. Like there'll always be people who are better than you. So look at them, understand why you're not able to think in that direction, and train yourself to think in that direction, like because that is going to be a lot more important in the long run, because all the classes that you take, it's absolutely worthless because you can go to a YouTube channel and get everything for free.
Or buy $1,000 worth of books, and you can get that same
Yeah,
knowledge,
absolutely,
except
like
for
I mean,
maybe the case study immersion and things of that sort. But
exactly.
yeah,
I mean,
you know
MBA
the
definitely adds value. I mean, I'm
yeah,
not
for sure.
saying it, I'm not taking anything away from it. At the end of the day, it's going to accelerate the path. It's going to give you the right direction. You're not trying to figure it out for yourself. Someone is there to guide you and tell you, okay, this is the right thing. These are the things that work. So you can just go in that direction. Versus learning by yourself will have its own pitfalls all the time.
There's one thing that I want to focus on before wrapping up this interview.
Hmm.
But before that, I wanna shout out, in case people want to know very tactical ways of hunting for roles and internships. Listen to the first interview I did with Siddharth Arora out of UCLA on my site. He
Hmm.
speaks about very cleverly going into LinkedIn and identifying people who are hiring and then networking with them. Another area
Right.
to be persistent, but tactfully looking at it. But
Oh, that reminds me something. I think this will
sure.
be very important for people. So especially those with limited experience, they need to stay very focused. So that is
Mm,
the key. The only key is be good at what you're doing. So for that reason, you have to go back to your profile. So for myself, like I worked on single sign-on technologies. I
Mm,
worked on VMware Cloud. I worked on some technologies. And I know that with 3 years of experience, I cannot add value in any other industry.
mm,
It's going to be hard for someone to believe because I haven't had a chance to manage people for too long. So there's
mm,
not going nothing to for them to believe. But technology has some leverage. So I have to
mm,
go back into technology, but find a space that I'm passionate about. So technology and marketing, that's the number one. And number two, go back into all those companies that work in a similar domain. So the only reason I went into Okta, it was a startup. Like back then they were a unicorn, and now they're like a public company worth beyond $1 billion. So I had multiple offers, but I chose Okta for that one reason that, okay, it's a startup. That's the kind of experience I'm looking for. And you get to do everything. So
yeah.
I went in and like I was only looking at, I mean, while recruiting, that's the process. You go back and understand what you are good at, what people will value in you. End of the day, emotions can only get you so far.
That
Like
part.
they can
Mm,
get you to MBA, they cannot get you their internship because the
mm,
behavioral is going to come only after they think you're a technical fit for
mm,
that role. So
mm,
just staying, I mean, it's the regular marketing effort that you do. Okay, who is your target persona? What is your product? What are you good at? Who should you be selling to? And make the messaging and positioning everything in that direction. And in the process, when you reach out to people and be passionate about what you're talking about, like for me, it was all about be genuinely interested in the role, be
mm,
genuinely interested in the person you're talking to, in the company you're recruiting for, and
mm,
everything will else will fall in place because that's when you're going to make the other person believe that you'll give your best.
mm, mm.
Versus if I say, yeah, I like it. I guess I'm good at it. I'll do it. When, yeah, you have to listen to me because I'm good at it. Kind of the thing won't work. You have to be passionate about what you're talking about.
I completely understand, completely empathize. I want to wrap up with one thing.
Oh
As
yeah,
I was
sir. Go
researching
ahead.
about Kenan-Flagler and their core values or their culture, I noticed a few things. We spoke about this a little earlier. They value a few things, which is bottom line and the greater good, right? They want to
Mm-hmm.
focus on both. Through that, their core values are excellence, leadership, integrity, community, teamwork. Now, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of schools invest a lot of time in understanding or crafting their core values. Give us an inside person's perspective on any one of these core values that you saw most displayed or what you felt overall was the culture of UNC itself.
Sure. And that's going to be very critical in your decision. So when you think about what community do you want to be part of, it's not just about those 2 years, but it's going to be the next 15, 20 years of your networking. That's the people you would be talking to. That's how you would be perceived by everyone else out in the world. So, I mean, in the US especially, the colleges have a lot of brand value. So UNC stands for certain things, and you should know about it. So for me, it was about I don't know if you went to the entire profile, but I would constantly give back to the community in whatever way I could, like either teaching or like helping out people with their course, like in some schools. Like I do certain things, and it was all about understanding that some people are underprivileged and giving it back to them. And UNC has a very strong philosophy of giving back to the community. And there, are, I mean, every MBA has a unique culture. Everyone talks about some sort of giving back, but there will be certain schools that will talk about, okay, this is what we stand for. We
Mm,
empathize with people, or we agree that the world is not created equal, and
mm,
we will try to make it equal. That's the kind of philosophy that UNC stands for. And in the
mm,
process, you meet people who are extremely beautiful. Like when I say beautiful, like they inspire you. The two
mm,
years, I did not just learn marketing. I did not just learn about how to get a job. I learned about how would you treat a person in pain.
mm,
And you would think coming from India, you're really good at it. But when you talk to people, when you hear to their stories, you'll be like, okay, they give you a reason to be humble, they give you a
mm,
reason to be empathetic, they give you a reason to invest in someone else's success. That is the
mm,
most important. Like when you think about successful people, most people say like dude, like we are a successful company and everything is possible because we are collaborative, but people are collaborative only to a certain extent, only when
mm,
it's going to be there in benefit.
mm,
But at UNC, you'll find a lot of people. Like there will be anomalies, of course. There'll be assholes everywhere. But I'll say like 90-95% of the people are genuinely going to be committed in improving you as a person. as much as they would want to improve themselves. They believe in giving and then getting it back. So sharing is caring. You hear it very often, and that is what UNC stands for. Like that, I mean, I won't talk about how smart they are because everyone is smart. The one thing I'll talk about is how collaborative they are. When I say collaborative, it goes way, way beyond what we're used to in India. In India, like especially because of the competition, you tend to be closed. You only help people to a certain extent. But here they just go all out, and you feel like, okay, damn it, I could have done that, and next time I'll do better. And in the process, you're constantly improving as a human.
Unbelievable. I want to thank you so much for doing this interview. This is the most candid interview I've had in the last 11 or 12 that I've had across schools. So this is incredible, and it is necessary for people to listen to this. I want to wrap up by saying this, that not in all schools, it's pretty common where when you go in, especially as an Indian and as an international, the first day at Ross, I recall we had a meeting of all international students with the career services, and they said, oh, the percentage of roles that are available for internationals are only about 30%. And that was a rude shock. And we were wondering, why weren't we told this at the very beginning when we were trying to get in? I think that's as much about the people, the ambassadors of each school, to paint a true picture and showcase what school values, but also say, here are the challenges you'll face. And this is the series that's going to help for doing it. So thank you for being super candid.
I mean, this is a great initiative. I'm not even kidding, because back then I did not have enough channels or enough. I didn't even, like in India, in LinkedIn is not as popular. So I wouldn't even think about it in the first place. So I had to constantly go back to my manual network and then find people and or like talk to someone who may not be necessarily invested or necessarily giving the right picture. Like for me, there's so many things about what you're told before getting into an MBA. It's always advisable to talk to a good friend. And like for me, it feels like, okay, since I have been through it and since I've been trained from some beautiful people at UNC, I feel like it's my part to help people understand that it's not going to be that easy. So if someone is really willing to have another call or something, like you can share my profile somewhere.
LinkedIn.
I don't know if you can.
That's right.
Okay.
In fact, for anybody that wants to reach out, please reach out to him. He's very responsive via LinkedIn now, and he got back to me kindly and rap fast to do this interview. So thank you so much, dude. Much appreciated.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good